I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Town Board for Monday, September 12th, 2022. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey, Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop, Ms. Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin,
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth,
Present.
Mr. Williams.
All right. Next item is approval of minutes from August 8th, 2022. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by James. Any corrections? I do have one small correction. I attended the meeting via phone. So, but the meeting was actually conducted by Mary Alice. Are there any, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that's approved. Any additions to the agenda? No additions. Public participations. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to committee to verify bills, the town fund, and the general assistance fund.
Good evening. So this last month, we had $79,111.90 in expenditures in the town fund. We had $174,954.24 in the general assistance fund. The total expenditures were $254,066.14. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the bills.
Mary Alice.
I noticed that we have 2 Amazon Prime memberships that were paid. I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Let's see. This is my understanding, because I approved this, and I think it's listed twice, so it's a combined total. I think it's listed twice because it's half paid for by general assistance and half paid for by town fund. Because I approved this recently, and the amount was double. The $89.50 is just half.
Okay, all
So
right. So that's
essentially it's
accounting
one
purposes,
membership.
it's one account, but it just had to be split across different
Exactly. So
funds.
sometimes that will
Okay,
show twice.
that's fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the library foundation is the recipient of our Amazon Smile Points. Just in case you were wondering, we wanted the foundation to benefit.
Oh,
It
great.
has to be a nonprofit. It cannot be a government agency. So.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the town fund, general assistant funds?
I'll move to approve the township and general assistance funds.
Second?
Second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Jaya. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes. Reports of officers.
Yeah, so I'm just going to highlight a few things from this report that are noteworthy. I think the place I want to start at, and this has been a trend for about the last 4 weeks. I think the last time we spoke, actually the last few times I've reported on emergency housing, I've said that we're expanding to the 8 units. I felt that overall that would address the need in the community for literally homeless families. I should never say anything like that again because within the next 4 weeks we had a deluge of requests. So our requests primarily come through our case manager in the schools. That person will actually assess whether they are qualified for our program. We house literally homeless families in our emergency housing program. And so we have 7 actually in. We just had someone move out, so we have a couple days of cleaning. So once we put the new family in, we'll have 4. We currently have 5 families on the wait list. We reached out to Emergency Family Shelter in Champaign, and they have 4. This is as of the date of this memo. That may have changed. This is the longest our list has ever been. It's our intention to not have any literally homeless families sleeping in cars or abandoned houses or unsheltered. And I am trying to get a handle on exactly what's happening, what the situation is. I did speak with the City of Champaign Township Supervisor Andy Kornstrom today to try to assess what he's seeing. And I had spoken with RPC. He says that the number of rental assistance requests he saw last month was greater than he has seen in a long time. As you can see from the bills, I think we did 25, is that right? Rental assistance cases. That's about double what we would consider a high month, right? Of 12, 13 that's when we know we're kind of humming. We did 25 assistance cases last month, and we have 5 homeless families who are literally homeless. And again, by the end of this week, we would have 4. We have a number of referrals coming in. Kids went back to school, and the referrals came really fast and furious. And this is not exactly a new program. Like, we have communicated with the social workers and had an all social work training with the school district in April when we launched. So they're very aware of it. We are about to do a second training. We haven't even done the training for this year yet. So I guess I will be in touch with you about what we're seeing, but it is our intention to not have anyone waitlisted who has children in Urbana schools. We're not seeing a whole lot of new arrivals. It is people, it's still majority folks who are from our community, by and large. So I put a big exclamation point next to it because I'm worried. The second piece, which makes this kind of a perfect storm, is that the number of COVID vouchers for housing has basically been largely used up there. That program has been very successful. We have housed numerous people. As you can see, our numbers are currently at 113 households moved into subsidized housing through our housing advocacy, and most of that is with their voucher holders. So I'm going to continue to make phone calls to understand. What I've asked our front desk staff person to do, because we will assess anyone who comes in the front door, but sometimes when someone finds that there isn't the thing that they need that night, which is a place to sleep, they don't always go through the assessment process. So I want to make sure our numbers of inquiries is tracked very closely. So from now on, starting this last Friday when I had staff meeting, we're going to count inquiries, and I want details of the inquiries. So I'm going to be looking daily at how many people have called, what their circumstances were. Certainly, again, we always invite them to do intake, but sometimes folks will choose not to because they're thinking about tonight, and if we're not the right phone call, then they have to call a relative or someone else. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We are having a meeting next Monday, hosted by the United Way, about what is more low barrier shelter needs. I'm really happy to see that move forward. It looks like things are progressing well with the City of Champaign Township opening in November as a low barrier shelter. I want to make sure we don't lose beds in that process. I'm meeting with Sue at home tomorrow. So, but I think that we have to kind of look at all the different circumstances, and obviously that low barrier shelter would not be appropriate for families. It really is, we have an emergency family shelter that are the options in our community. So I think the only other thing is I did mention we are updating our food assistance program. When we get to that piece, I'll give a further update, and I've asked Emily McCowan from the Channing Murray Foundation to present with me on that topic. Anyway, I'm happy to answer any other questions you have from the memo or any questions on the issue of homeless families.
Grace.
Thanks for the presentation and all the important work you guys do in the community. It's unfortunate to have things swing and not be able to have the capacity that we thought we were at previously. I guess broad question on if there's anything we can do as town board or community to help support those efforts, and then more specifically, about the temporary housing and hotels and things, does that still require someone to do your intake process? I guess I'm just trying to understand what it looks like when someone, walks in, and what makes the difference of if they can have a place, if you can provide housing or not, and kind of what that process timeline looks like.
Yeah, so it's a very common occurrence in our office that someone will call or walk in, a family, we'll talk families for the moment, looking for housing. And then essentially, and most of them at this point are coming through the school system. I think that partnership has been really successful. And our goal honestly is to catch families when they're behind in rent, not evicted, so that we can help to support them staying in place. What was your question? So it was, so when a family comes to the front, to talk with us or comes through Kyle Patterson, essentially we have an assessment process. We triage, so it may be that, it's very rare that people can move in that night. In fact, it tends to be that people come to us in the afternoon, so it makes it even more challenging to move on in. But we will assess, and we will basically do a triage of kind of like what's the emergency solution right at that moment. And then we will screen, make sure that we have set people up to be registered with centralized intake for the homeless. There's different programs for veterans, there are different programs for people with disabilities, there's different, if someone is HIV positive, there's certain housing options. So we are kind of screening for all available housing options. And then we do a kind of rapid response with the emergency housing intake. So we'll assess the circumstances, and if there is space and they qualify for our program, then we will move them in as soon as possible. So, we can meet them they sign program agreements, we go over the rules, and then we provide orientation to the space. The issue is that we have a lot of, and I will say the vast majority of referrals that we have are not for literally homeless families. Homelessness means a lot of things, there's many definitions, and most people's experience of homelessness is that they are doubled up or moving from place to place. It's not a good environment for kids. I'm not saying it, I would like us to address McKinney, what is called McKinney-Vento Definition Act homeless. We do have resources and support that we can provide in those situations, especially working with Regional Office of Education. They can do 3 to 8 days in a hotel, one family at a time. And so sometimes that's enough to give people a stopgap measure before they are able to stay with another family member or friend. But if there isn't a situation, then we proceed to move with all due speed. And generally speaking, because we've been able to move folks into permanent housing with vouchers, and because we've been, there've been a lot of folks coming in with income where we could provide move-in assistance or rental assistance, our average stay has been about 2 months, 2 to 3 months. And we are now anticipating longer stays because we don't have those voucher options. So what we're doing is, we have a rapid rehousing program that can help to, once we receive a referral from the county, we can't prioritize our individuals, but once we receive a referral from the county, RPC, then essentially we go through the process of housing folks. Right now, what we're seeing is a much tighter market. It was very tight last year this time, but in my 5 years, these last 2 years have been the worst. It's been very hard to find any kind of housing at all, even for folks who have credit. And so the amount of time it's been taking to move people into housing has been in the months. I mean, it can be 3 to 4 months for people working daily to find and access and move into housing, because we still face rampant discrimination. I just received a phone call from a case manager who called the Neves group today and was told specifically, we don't take people with vouchers. So I just got that this afternoon. I'll be following up with that piece. So we've got that piece. We've got the fact that it's a very tight housing market, so landlords can be choosy even in situations where, they may refuse based on credit or, prior eviction record. And so I think the issue is kind of those twofold pieces. One, we have limited emergency housing. Our vouchers are kind of running out community-wise, and if we're able to get vouchers or able to do rapid rehousing where we pay the rent for 12 months, we're seeing very long time frames. And we're working daily with folks. I mean, it's not for lack of effort. on anyone's part. So that, I hope that answers the question, but that's basically the situation. If they are McKinney-Vento Definition Act homeless, we'll start referring them to move-in assistance. And so if they have income, we can help them move into their own place. And that's been very successful. Otherwise, they are basically in a waiting period. And, you know, sometimes we'll see if there's a shelter in the area that can take them out of town, but essentially that's disruptive to the children's education, because then the parent is no longer in town with the children. And we had a recent situation like that, where we disrupted that child's education, and they had to go to Kentucky, so.
And thank you for those explanations. And so you said it sounded like they can stay at the hotel just up to 3 days at a time. Like, I'm wondering, with the 5 literally homeless families on the waiting list, have they already like exhausted what can be done then, or haven't done the full intake? I guess I understand that it sounds like the transition housing owned by Township is full.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, I guess, how the hotel stay plays in here.
So there's 2 hotels. There's the hotel paid for by Regional Office of Education. By their own rules, they put in 1 family at a time, no more, and they typically do it for 3 days. And there's a referral process, and there was a period of time when school was out, they did not put anyone in any hotel because there was no school. So I am sure that we've referred whoever we could, the most vulnerable family, to that program. We have 4 hotel rooms for medically fragile folks and people with disabilities who cannot stay at the shelter, who basically screened out of shelter. We have had 5 people in that program, and our hotel has increased the rates 20%. And so we're not, you know, given that it's an ESG funded program, I'm in the process of trying to figure out if I can pull budget from Angel Donor Fund or from the levy so that we can keep that program whole for the entire year. Because obviously we passed a budget, you know, before we knew about such, I think I had projected a 3 to 5% increase. I didn't understand it would be 20%. So, you know, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's a very difficult time for low-income families in this town right now. And that is what I'm hearing from everyone I speak to.
Any other questions? Grace?
Last one, I was wondering, and this is something we kicked around a little earlier too, but on a broad scale, if we could have some information and perspective from you in your office, along with others we've talked about before, of getting kind of a broad picture of homeless services and gaps, especially when we're going into ARPA allocations, and kind of get a lay of the land and what are some of the most targeted needs in the community still. So I don't know if we could just
Okay.
explore that a little bit.
Yeah, so Township is a convener, we are a funder, and we are a program provider. And so I think it would be appropriate, and we were thinking about this for October, if it would be appropriate for the town board, that we're going to be presenting to the executive committee on outreach, so those who are not served, who are street homeless, at, I think, September 22nd. At the October meeting, I'd be happy to provide a landscape of what we're seeing in the community that's not just about our programs and provision, but basically overall, the trends that we're seeing and the kind of data behind those pieces. I'd be happy to do that. And, you know, and also, I'm a resource for you, so anytime that you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. And, you know, we're at the continuum of service providers of the homeless table, as is the city, and we've been doing a gap analysis at that level to try to better understand kind of what the needs are. So yes, I think we'll have time in October, and I'd be happy to set aside some time to really present kind of landscape, what we're seeing.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on. I don't believe there's any unfinished business. We'll take up new business. First item is ordinance number T 2022-09-004, an ordinance approving the Cunningham Township annual budget for fiscal year 2022. Is there a motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Jaya. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by James. Discussion. Mary Alice.
I think I brought this up before. I have concerns about the amount of money that we've been spending on training for the assessor's office. When I spoke to Wayne about it, I thought it would be good for him to come to township board meetings and let us know how they're leveraging the training that they are using, that they're signing up for. And I noticed that the final amount of training is $3,000 over what we had originally budgeted. So we originally budgeted $20,000, and when that amount went in, and I apologize if I've already said this before, but when Wayne first started in the office, he had argued that because they had new employees, they had to have double the training budget. And so we had talked about having that go back down to $10,000, which was the normal budget, but I see this continuing to increase every year, so it's something that I've been keeping an eye on. I just want to make sure that the training that we're sending people to is beneficial to the community and to the office. So,
This is just two responses. What you see before you is actuals from last year. So this is a revised budget based on actual. You could see it as a financial report of sorts. The training for Township Supervisors Fund was $149. The training from the General Assistance Fund was $1,208. The training from the assessors was $23,236. I'm not the assessor. I would need to take it up with him. But I will say that I've worked hard to increase our training for our staff this year, so you will see that reflected in the budgets that I manage. And I'm happy to provide a detailed accounting of what the training is for and where people went. It typically is $200 and $300 trainings online to help to support staff to provide trauma-informed care.
yeah, I don't have a problem with the concept of training. I just want to ensure that the training we're signing people up for is being then leveraged in the office.
Yeah, I guess I would encourage you to reach out to the assessor, and there
I
are
have.
requirements that the
Yep.
assessor's office has that the supervisor's office does not have in terms of training. And
Yeah, I misspoke. I'm sorry. It was the assessor that I was talking about.
Yeah, so, he could,
Your training budget is pretty minimal.
Yeah, I actually think my training budget is too low. And that's because it was COVID and we didn't have any time to do training. And so I've really improved that this year because it's very important that we receive professional development in our office on a regular basis. So we are
You have a
looking
lot
at
more
monthly
employees as
trainings.
well, so
What's that?
you have more employees.
Yes.
Yep.
Any other comments? Grace?
Thank you. If I could just recap my understanding of this, because it's more than a 10% transfer in the way the funds are set up and the laws, that we're transferring 130 some from general assistance to rental assistance because of that kind of unexpected trend with how homeless services the need came around. And these are both GA fund, and we're still under budget overall. We're just moving it from one assistance to another type of assistance. And is that right?
So I forecasted that the economy would bust last year and people would be out of work and we'd need additional general assistance. I was wrong. What happened instead is that actually there was quite a bit of employment. Our general assistance rolls dropped. But what we saw is over and over again waves of quarantine due to COVID and people getting behind on rent. So essentially the need became rent and not general assistance. And one thing that Wayne had actually suggested, and I think is a good one, is we could consider in future budgets having an assistance line item essentially. And I like to have a detailed, with sub-accounts, I like to track things in detail. But in terms of like whether we need to go through this process to do a budget amendment when we were simply over about $15,000 in expenditures total because of the high level of rental assistance and low level of general assistance, we could consider doing an assistance line item in the future, and it would avoid this. But I also think it's important for you all to see a financial report, so as long as you don't mind having a public hearing and doing an amended budget, we could do that as well.
Any other comments? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti?
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin?
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes.
That motion passes. Next item is Resolution Number T, 2022-09-014R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with the Channing Murray Foundation for the Bucket Brigade food delivery.
Yeah, and I would ask Emily if you wanted to come to the table here to answer any questions. So essentially, last year, I'm pulling up my notes about this. So the Bucket Brigade is a project that was started as a partnership with the Channing Murray Foundation and Cunningham Township during COVID-19. It was started in the first weeks of shutdown because we knew that our participants would be the first to run out of toilet paper and the first to not have food in their pantry. And so I had reached out to Channing Murray, and we discussed, since they have the vegetarian restaurant and had some capacity at the time, we partnered and launched this idea really as a kind of co-design throughout the process. And what we have been doing is essentially delivering to, first it was angel donor funded, then it was tax levy funded. Last year you approved a contract for us to do a kind of per bucket approach, so that as it shrinks or grows, we're paying for what happens. So that per bucket was $10 a bucket, 50, which is essentially 2 weeks of food staples for $10. The food is donated through St. Vincent de Paul. There's some food that comes through the food bank. A lot of the vegetables come through Solidarity Gardens. We sometimes get donations of diapers and feminine hygiene products. We're able to add those on. We have been able to buy some of those items as well as the Angel Donor Fund has allowed. And then basically we have a volunteer delivery system through the Channing Murray Foundation. So we're really proud of that collaboration. We have been updating the program and kind of streamlining it. It was also the case that the Channing Murray Foundation was providing volunteer coordination and event support. And now that we have built our capacity at Cunningham Township and are able to take that kind of volunteer piece back under our own house, we no longer need that kind of assistance. So what we really want to focus on in this memorandum of understanding is essentially renewing the Bucket Brigade. There's a couple of things that we've done that I want to kind of explain the big picture. We've seen an increasing request for food assistance, and we've seen increasing precarity. And so what we've done is I've brought a full-time intern with the School of Social Work in, and a portion of her job is to screen anyone who is dealing with hunger issues for their hunger issues. So it's not just a referral to the Bucket Brigade. We actually screen, we do an assessment. We, if they are having trouble with link, which has been very common this summer for some reason, we refer them to healthcare consumers where we have a contract for those referrals. If they are homebound and they have food stamps, but they're not able to get to travel to get the food, we are working to set up food delivery from the grocery store using the stamps. And there's certain, you kind of have to set up it on your app, and so we're kind of doing that navigation work to help people with disabilities be able to order food directly to their home. And then those who are running out of food stamps, which is pretty common, especially for single individuals, it's a very small allocation, and we usually see that run out at the end of the month. We refer people to area food pantries, and we recently updated our food guide to make sure that it's up to date. So anyone who calls us about food, we automatically mail to their address food pantry information. No matter what category they're in, they get our guide. But it may be that their primary issue is they have transportation or they're able to take the bus, but they just don't have enough food. And now we're narrowing kind of the Bucket Brigade on folks who can't get out necessarily and access that food. And so we are limited to 20 households and then some emergency deliveries, and that's because of our food pantry providers. That's not related to capacity on either of our parts. We'll no longer do hot prepared meals. We're doing a lot of that work through our street outreach work So it makes less sense. We're really targeting hot meals for people who don't have any way to cook at home. So that's targeted. And then we're giving priority to those with mobility issues or medical issues, people who may be having temporary issues with Link or SNAP. So we might do a 2-week provision while they get a chance to work with healthcare consumers to work out their food stamps. And we will be limiting our deliveries to CTSO participants and residents with an Urbana address. So that will include school-age children who may not be in the city. But that's similar to our school program at this point. So Emily, I don't know if you wanted to share a story from Bucket Brigade or share your experiences, and then we could take questions.
Sure, totally. Thanks, Danielle. I'll tell you, we've served over 6,000 people since we started in March 2020.
Can you make sure your mic is on?
Yeah, especially when you say
Oh, fun.
10,000.
I see, green light. Yeah, we've served over 6,000 people since we started in March 2020, and 2,500 of those were children. And I guess I'll just reiterate that, it started as a response to distancing and masking, and through the years, we've been able to work so closely with Township on really figuring out what are the specific needs of each of these families, and it's just been such a privilege to work with the case managers who are doing that like day-to-day work on the phone to really assess the need, because I think that there's a lot of when we're working with St. Vincent de Paul at St. Pat's and other food pantries and agencies that I know from Eastern Illinois Food Bank, it's really hard to figure out what is the root cause. A lot of food pantries don't have that. So the close collaboration we have with the Township is a real privilege. And I've been doing deliveries and seeing that, yeah, there's a myriad of reasons why folks can't get to the food pantry, and we're just, with this particular MOU and this particular agreement, I feel like Township is really shining in the way that they can assess the need, and Channing Murray is getting better and better at providing a gradient of groceries that fits their special diet request, or like however many, if they need soap and laundry detergent that week, we've now tailored this volunteer program to be able to make sure that we're providing the specific things that these folks need. And it's kind of an exciting chapter to get there and really be useful in our community. Yeah.
Can you state your name for the record so we can acknowledge
Sure.
your presence here?
My name's Emily McCown. I'm the Channing Murray Executive Director.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Emily or Danielle?
And I just want to say, correction, I'm sorry, it's $15 a bucket, not 10.
I was like,
So I want to be clear, it's the same as it was last year in the same contract, but it's 15. I just want to correct myself.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Grace?
Thanks for the information on this great program and having it continue. I'm trying to understand what's changing from last year. It sounds like are more responsibilities coming to Township as far as coordinating volunteers?
No, so what's changed is we'll no longer pay for volunteer coordination. We'll no longer pay for event support. We've been able to take those in-house with our intern program and our expansion of staff, and that is working well. What we're focused in on is the Bucket Brigade. It's the same kind of, we're narrowing the criteria for who gets a bucket, and we are limited to 20 buckets. But other than that, this is not in the MOU, but what we have done is, because we've learned from the Bucket Brigade, we realize that we need a food assessment process at Township. That's not something that Channing Murray Foundation has ever done. It's something that emerged from us having repeat customers and being able to dive into their situation. So the context I wanted to offer you all for the MOU is that we have a more robust food assistance program, which we've built over the summer, that really has an assessment process and a routing to various alternatives that we didn't have before. And I'm proud of that, because then we're able to kind of serve people where they're at in a much better way. To be clear, we have had a 20-person cap for a while, and we've had many more folks than that needing it. So we've been trying to assess, okay, given that we can't serve everyone who's requesting it like we have been able to do in the past, what do we need to better meet people's needs? And so, at Township, we always try to offer a yes with everything that we do. So now the yes is, yes, you need food assistance, let's help you with your SNAP. Yes, let's help you get to a food pantry. Here's a list of pantries. Yes, let's have you get deliveries at home. Okay, all of those things won't work for this next week. Let's sign you up on Bucket Brigade so that we really serve the people who kind of need it the most.
Okay, thank you. And so then Channing Murray will still be, because you guys, my understanding, have like the fridges and store and coordinate the food, and people will still like pick it up from there. It's
And
just the coordination through Township.
They coordinate
right?
the volunteers for the Bucket Brigade. They don't coordinate the volunteers for everything at Township. I'm sorry, that's probably, so they do all the recruitment, volunteer appreciation, and volunteer coordination. They operate the Bucket Brigade and make sure deliveries happen. We simply help people sign up for the Bucket Brigade who are eligible for the program. And then, of course, provide a host of advocacy pieces around that.
And then the reimbursement.
Yes, and then we do reimbursement, and then we have a monthly meeting where we're constantly kind of landscaping what's needed and how we can better the program and work with additional partners.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, could we get a motion?
I'll move resolution number T-2022-09-014R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Channing Murray Foundation for Bucket Brigade food delivery.
Second.
Second. From
Is
Grace.
that Grace? Further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Wu.
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the partnership with the Channing Murray Foundation.
Okay, next item on the agenda is resolution number T 2022-09-015R, resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with the state of Illinois for Emergency Solutions Grant for Homeless Services.
Did you want to get a motion on the table? Or
Yeah, let's get a motion on the table for that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is that
Second.
Grace? Okay. Moved by Grace, seconded by Mary Alice. Any
I just provide the basic, essentially, we have had 2 years of emergency solutions grants funding. Those 2 years have been through the city of Urbana as a fiscal sponsor. We've worked closely with Braden Belcher, who's just been amazing and seems to understand the ins and outs of ESG more than most people in this community, because it's a very difficult program to understand. And that was kind of our training wheels. We've learned a lot from the process. We are ready to administer the grant directly. We have received the award letter, which is in your packet, and essentially I'm requesting your permission to sign that agreement. We will receive it's $103,622 in ESG funding, and that will be for street outreach, for emergency housing in hotels, not our shelter, which is Urbana specific, and for rapid rehousing programs, and then case management that runs throughout that. So it's, we're happy that the Continuum of Service Providers to the Homeless has selected us through a process and recommended us, and that the state has agreed. So I'm looking forward to continuing those programs.
Any discussion or questions? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes. The last item of new business is Resolution T 2022-09-016R, which is a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement for audit services with Lauterbach and Amen. Or Amen, I'm not sure.
Yeah, amen and amen.
Amen. Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Sharice. Discussion or
Just very
presentation?
briefly, we had an auditor last year. They were wonderful. They lost staff. They were not able to take us on for a second year as a result. We reached out to 12 different auditing firms. I believe we had some contact with 6. We had 2 proposals submitted. This one for $9,260 and another one for $13,000. We are a larger agency and we're seeing the price of audits go up. So we've grown as an agency, but also the price of audits has gone up because there's more competition. And I checked this particular firm has worked with the city of Champaign and the city of Champaign Township, has experience working with municipalities, especially townships, and I think is well qualified to do the work. I will just give you a heads up that because we are, everyone is so squeezed in terms of getting audits done, this will be submitted by the end of December, but they're not able to present to the board until the January meeting, which they said is somewhat common amongst townships. I prefer to present to you in December. I can't make that happen this year because I can't find an auditing firm that will do it in that time frame for a reasonable price. So just letting you know, giving you a heads up on that. I can certainly send you the draft audit if you're interested.
Questions? Mary Alice?
Do you remember how much we paid for auditing last year?
I want to say 85 or 8,600.
Okay. For some reason, 7,000 was sticking in my head, but.
Yeah, and it was, so this is, there's an increase, but we also see an increase each year.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkins,
Yes.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Mr. Evans.
Yes.
That motion passes. With no further business before the Cunningham Town Board, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
We'll resume at 7 o'clock with the regular meeting of the Urbana City Council.